If you have ever felt that sudden cold shift in a woman's eyes, the moment where closeness quietly turns into distance, this video may unsettle you because it explains why it happens. Before we go any further, take 1 second to subscribe and like this video, because what you are about to hear is rarely explained honestly. I am speaking to you not as an entertainer, but as a female psychologist who has listened to thousands of private confessions. Infidelity is not random, and it is not the same at 20 as it is at 45. In a woman's 20s, cheating is usually driven by identity formation. She is testing versions of herself. Attraction feels urgent. Emotional regulation is still developing, and novelty activates the brain more strongly than long-term consequence. When a woman in her 20s cheats, it is often impulsive, emotionally charged, and linked to validation. She wants to feel chosen, powerful, and desired, sometimes without fully understanding the damage. In her 30s, something changes. Life pressure increases, career timelines, biological clocks, and social comparisons start closing in. Infidelity here is less impulsive and more strategic. It often begins emotionally, not physically. She feels unseen, unappreciated, or quietly disappointed. Cheating becomes a coping mechanism rather than an adventure. She is not chasing excitement, she is escaping erosion. This is where many men misread the signs, because the betrayal does not look reckless, it looks calm. After 45, infidelity shifts again. Desire does not disappear, but fear does. Many women at this stage feel they have already paid the price of sacrifice. Children are older, marriages feel stable but empty, and time suddenly feels finite. Cheating here is deliberate and compartmentalized. It is rarely about leaving and rarely about chaos. It is about reclaiming vitality and control. None of this excuses betrayal, it explains it. And if you truly want power in relationships, understanding female psychology at each stage is not optional, it is survival. And the men who ignore these patterns often repeat the same pain, blaming luck instead of insight, attraction instead of behavior, and women instead of growth. Awareness does not make you paranoid, it makes you precise, grounded, and emotionally intelligent. That clarity is what separates reactive boys from calm men who choose better partners and better lives, without confusion, chaos, or silent self-betrayal. Again, what most men never realize is that female infidelity is rarely about sex first. It is about perception. How a woman perceives herself through you changes with age, and that perception determines everything. In her 20s, a woman often borrows her sense of worth from attention. If she feels desired, she feels valuable. If that attention fades, insecurity grows fast. This is why infidelity at this age often overlaps with social environments, workspaces, parties, or online validation. The betrayal is less about you and more about her fragile self-image still under construction. By her 30s, perception turns inward. She is no longer asking, "Am I attractive?" She is asking, "Am I settling?" That question is dangerous. It creates silent comparisons. She measures her partner against imagined alternatives, past lovers, and potential futures. Infidelity here is often rationalized. She tells herself she deserves more emotional depth, more ambition, more presence. The affair partner is not always superior, but he represents possibility. That possibility intoxicates her more than the man himself. After 45, perception becomes existential. Time compresses. Mortality whispers. Many women reach this stage having been loyal for decades, yet feeling invisible. When infidelity happens now, it is rarely chaotic. It is calm, planned, and often hidden with surgical precision. This is where men are blindsided, because they assume passion fades with age. It doesn't. It becomes quieter, more intentional, and more dangerous when unmet. Here is the uncomfortable truth most men resist. Women cheat less when they feel seen, not controlled. Surveillance, jealousy, and dominance do not prevent infidelity. Emotional attunement does. Men who age well in relationships do one thing consistently. They adapt their leadership style. They stop performing masculinity and start embodying it. They listen without fixing. They desire without begging. They lead without suffocating. If you are younger, this knowledge gives you leverage. If you are older, it gives you clarity. And if you have been betrayed before, it gives you peace. Because betrayal stops feeling random when you understand its psychological roots. Infidelity is not destiny, it is feedback. Brutal, painful feedback about unmet needs, misaligned values, or emotional neglect that accumulated quietly. The men who evolve do not obsess over preventing cheating. They focus on becoming the kind of presence that makes betrayal unnecessary and unattractive. That is the difference between men who age into bitterness and men who age into quiet authority. One blames women, the other understands them, and only one of those paths leads to lasting respect, desire, and emotional safety in relationships that do not collapse under the weight of time, temptation, and unspoken disappointment. There's another layer most men never examine,
and it sits beneath behavior, beneath age, beneath even attraction. It is the way women experience emotional safety over time. In a woman's 20s, emotional safety often feels boring. Chaos can feel like chemistry. Uncertainty feels like passion. This is why some young women drift toward men who stimulate anxiety rather than stability. If infidelity happens here, it is often entangled with thrill-seeking, secrecy, and emotional highs that mimic love but burn fast and leave confusion behind. By her 30s, emotional safety becomes currency. She no longer wants intensity without reliability. She wants to feel anchored. When that anchor weakens, when conversations turn transactional, when intimacy becomes predictable and unexamined, dissatisfaction grows quietly. This is where emotional affairs thrive. A coworker who listens, a friend who remembers details, a man who mirrors her inner world. Physical betrayal may come later, but the psychological bond forms first. Men often miss this stage because nothing obvious has happened yet. After 45, emotional safety transforms again. It becomes about authenticity. Many women reach this age having spent decades managing roles, expectations, and emotional labor. If she cheats now, it is often because she feels free for the first time. Free to want, free to choose, free to be selfish without apology. This is not immaturity. It is delayed self-permission. And it shocks partners who assumed loyalty was permanent once earned. Here is what separates men who keep attraction alive across decades from those who lose it. They evolve emotionally at the same pace as their partner. They do not freeze themselves in the man they were at 30 while expecting her to remain the same woman. Stagnation kills desire faster than conflict ever will. A woman who feels emotionally known rarely seeks secrecy.
A woman who feels emotionally alone will create a private world somewhere else. This is not a threat, it is a pattern, and patterns can be interrupted by awareness. If this makes you uncomfortable, that is good. Growth always does. The goal is not to control outcomes, but to understand dynamics. Power in relationships does not come from fear of loss. It comes from emotional presence, self-respect, and the willingness to evolve before resentment calcifies. Men who master this do not obsess over age gaps, body changes, or external competition. They become irreplaceable by being deeply attuned yet grounded. That combination is rare, and rarity is what sustains desire long after novelty fades, long after youth passes, and long after most relationships quietly fall apart without anyone understanding why. One of the most dangerous myths men believe is that loyalty is a personality trait. It is not. Loyalty is a state, and states change under pressure. In a woman's 20s, loyalty is fragile because identity is fluid. She has not yet decided who she is loyal as. When she cheats at this age, it is often followed by guilt, confusion, and emotional chaos. She is not cold, she is unformed. Men who take this personally often harden too early, turning one betrayal into a lifelong defense. In her 30s, loyalty becomes conditional, not in a cruel way, but in a conscious one. She is investing time, fertility, and emotional labor. If she feels that investment is being taken for granted, loyalty erodes silently. She may still love her partner, still function, still smile in public, while privately disconnecting. Infidelity here is not impulsive. It is the end result of months or years of emotional withdrawal. Men often say she changed overnight. She didn't. You just weren't watching the right signals. After 45, loyalty often detaches from fear. Fear of judgment, fear of starting over, fear of being alone. When those fears fade, loyalty is no longer enforced by anxiety. It becomes a choice. If a woman cheats now, it is usually because the relationship no longer aligns with her sense of self. She is not trying to destroy her life. She is trying to feel alive inside it. This is where men miscalculate. They assume providing stability guarantees fidelity. Stability without emotional leadership creates comfort, not desire. And comfort alone does not prevent betrayal. Emotional leadership means setting a tone. It means curiosity instead of assumption. It means growth instead of entitlement. Men who maintain loyalty across decades are not perfect. They are responsive. They notice shifts early and address them without defensiveness. The hardest truth to accept is this: infidelity often happens long after attraction has been lost, not before. By the time another man enters the picture, the emotional vacancy already exists. That vacancy is what must be guarded, not the woman. Understanding this does not make you weak, it makes you strategic. You stop wasting energy on jealousy and start investing in presence. You stop fearing age and start mastering timing, awareness, and emotional depth. Men who grasp this truth stop seeing relationships as something to hold on to. They see them as something to continually create. And creation requires attention, humility, and the courage to evolve alongside a woman whose psychology is not static, but shaped by time, experience, and the silent narrative she lives with every day. Another truth most men never hear is that female infidelity is often preceded by emotional resignation. This is the stage where she stops asking, stops arguing, and stops trying to be understood. Men often mistake this calm for peace. It is not peace, it is detachment. In her 20s, resignation happens quickly. She still believes better is easily accessible, so she emotionally exits before she physically does. Cheating here is often a bridge, not a rebellion.
a way out without standing alone. In her 30s, resignation is slower and heavier. She has more to lose and more to manage: children, shared assets, reputation, and time invested. She does not leave emotionally all at once. She fragments. One part stays responsible, one part stays loyal in public, one part quietly starves. Infidelity becomes the place where that starving part finally breathes. This is why affairs at this age often feel intense and addictive. They are oxygen, not romance. After 45, resignation looks different again. It is not sadness, it is clarity. Many women at this stage are no longer angry. Anger requires hope. They are simply done negotiating with a version of life that no longer fits. If infidelity happens now, it is rarely followed by hysteria or drama. It is clean, private, and emotionally detached. Men are stunned by how calm she seems. That calm was earned over years of silent grieving. What men must understand is this: women rarely cheat because they hate their partner. They cheat because they stopped feeling alive within the relationship. Desire does not die from routine alone. It dies from emotional predictability, from being known but not seen, from being valued for roles instead of essence. A man who wants to prevent this does not chase excitement. He creates polarity. He continues to grow, challenge himself, and remain psychologically present. Women are deeply responsive to a man who is still becoming something, not clinging to what he was. If you are listening closely, you will notice this is not about tricks, control, or manipulation. It is about maturity. Emotional maturity creates safety without stagnation. It creates space without abandonment. That balance is rare, and rarity sustains attraction. Men who fail here often say, "I gave her everything." What they usually mean is they gave consistency, not consciousness. Provision without presence feels empty over time. Understanding this shifts your power. You stop reacting to outcomes and start influencing conditions. And conditions, not intentions, determine behavior. When a woman feels emotionally awake beside you, infidelity loses its appeal, not because she is trapped, but because she is fulfilled. That is the level of leadership that keeps relationships alive across decades. Not fear, not control, and never blind trust without awareness. There is a quiet pattern that emerges when you look at infidelity across a woman's lifespan, and it has nothing to do with morality and everything to do with unmet evolution. In her 20s, a woman is evolving rapidly. If her partner is static, she outgrows him. Cheating here is often an unconscious attempt to match her internal growth with an external experience. She is not calculating, she's expanding, sometimes recklessly. In her 30s, evolution becomes selective. She is no longer growing in every direction, she is refining. She wants depth, alignment, and shared vision. When a partner resists this phase, dismisses her inner changes, or treats growth as inconvenience, tension builds. Infidelity becomes a mirror. It reflects what she feels is missing in her primary relationship. This is why the affair partner often seems emotionally attuned rather than impressive on paper. After 45, evolution turns inward.
Many women reach a stage of self-authorship. They are less willing to compromise their inner truth for external stability. If infidelity occurs here, it is often preceded by a long period of self-reflection. She is not searching for someone to complete her. She is choosing experiences that resonate with who she has finally allowed herself to become. Men often fear this stage because they feel replaceable, but the truth is the opposite. Men who continue evolving become anchors, not obstacles. They are not threatened by change. They integrate it. A man who ages well psychologically does three things. He updates his self-image, he deepens his emotional range, and he maintains boundaries rooted in self-respect, not fear. These men do not beg for loyalty, they inspire it. The uncomfortable reality is that many men stop developing emotionally after early adulthood. They rely on routine, status, or history to carry the relationship. That works for a while, then it doesn't. Women feel this gap long before men do. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about refusing to fossilize. Attraction is not sustained by familiarity alone. It is sustained by aliveness, and aliveness requires movement. When you understand this, age stops feeling like a threat. A woman's changing psychology stops feeling unpredictable. You begin to see infidelity not as a random disaster, but as a signal of misalignment that could have been addressed earlier. Men who learn this lesson early do not panic when relationships deepen or shift. They lean in with curiosity rather than defensiveness. They lead with presence rather than control. That is why some men remain deeply desired into old age, while others are quietly left behind emotionally long before a relationship officially ends. The difference is not luck. It is psychological evolution kept in sync with time itself. One final truth that ties everything together is this: women do not experience age as decline. They experience it as revelation. Each decade strips illusions. In her 20s, she believes love should feel effortless. In her 30s, she learns effort without meaning is empty. After 45, she understands that time is the only non-renewable resource. Infidelity follows this arc when relationships fail to evolve alongside her awareness. Men often misinterpret this awakening as dissatisfaction with them personally. It is not always that simple. It is dissatisfaction with wasted emotional time. When a woman cheats later in life, it is rarely about wanting more men. It is about wanting less regret. This is why shaming, moralizing, or simplifying female infidelity never works. It ignores the psychological layers beneath the behavior. Understanding does not mean tolerating betrayal. It means choosing partners wisely, leading relationships consciously, and recognizing when alignment is fading before resentment takes root. The men who suffer most are those who confuse longevity with security. Time together does not guarantee intimacy. Shared history does not guarantee desire. Emotional presence does. A man who stays curious about his partner's inner world stays relevant. A man who assumes he already knows her becomes invisible. Women do not betray what they feel deeply connected to. They leave emotionally long before they leave physically. If you want to protect yourself, do not harden, sharpen. Emotional intelligence is not softness. It is strength with awareness. It allows you to love without blindness and trust without naivety. When you stop fearing female psychology and start understanding it, relationships stop feeling like a gamble. You recognize patterns, you read signals, you respond early. This is how you build relationships that survive time, temptation, and change. Not by demanding loyalty, but by creating a bond that remains alive as both people evolve. If this video challenged you, sit with it. Growth rarely feels comfortable. And if you want more psychologically grounded truths like this, make sure you are subscribed and stay engaged with this channel. The men who master these dynamics do not chase love. They create conditions where love chooses to stay. What I want to leave you with is not fear, but responsibility. Not responsibility for a woman's choices, but responsibility for the man you become over time. Female infidelity changes with age because women change with age. Men who refuse to change experience that as betrayal. Men who evolve experience it as depth. In your 20s and 30s, many men operate from entitlement without realizing it. Entitlement to loyalty, to attraction, to consistency. But desire is not a contract, it is a living response. When a woman senses that a man has stopped growing internally, she does not feel anger first, she feels loneliness. And loneliness inside a relationship is the most dangerous emotional state there is. As years pass, women become more honest with themselves. They stop pretending they are satisfied when they are not. They stop silencing their inner voice to keep peace. If you are a man who listens, adapts, and leads emotionally, this honesty strengthens the bond. If you are rigid, defensive, or emotionally absent, that honesty becomes distance. Infidelity is not the beginning of the end. It is evidence that the end already started internally. The mistake men make is focusing on the act instead of the erosion that came before it. By the time betrayal happens, the real loss has already occurred. Presence was lost, curiosity was lost, emotional polarity was lost. The most attractive men I have observed in decades of clinical work share one trait. They do not rely on age, power, or fear to keep a woman close. They rely on engagement. They stay mentally alive. They ask better questions. They challenge complacency in themselves first. If you take nothing else from this, take this. A woman who feels emotionally met does not look for escape. A woman who feels emotionally alone will eventually create a private exit, whether physical or emotional. This knowledge is not meant to make you anxious, it is meant to make you intentional. You do not need to be perfect. You need to be present, evolving, and self-aware. Men who integrate this understanding stop seeing relationships as fragile. They see them as dynamic systems that require leadership, awareness, and renewal. They stop blaming women for changing and start asking whether they themselves have remained psychologically relevant. That shift changes everything. If this perspective resonated with you, stay connected to this channel. These are not comfortable truths, but they are freeing ones. And men who can face uncomfortable truths calmly are the ones who build relationships that do not collapse when time, temptation, or